This is part 2 of how to get over any resistances and fears that you have around getting coaching clients. If you didn't watch part 1, where were you? I don't understand. But that's okay. We'll put a card up there so you can watch part 1. If you did watch part 1, then enjoy the rest of the discussion.
Number 6. This is connected to having our self-esteem in our offer, is that because we personalize the rejection, then avoidance becomes protection. And so what I mean by that is when we personalize, when we make a client's no wrong, right? When we make them the bad guy that said the wrong thing, and then we personalize that. And then because of number 5, our self-esteem is wrapped up in our offer. So now we think all the things that we think about ourselves because they said no. And because we personalize that, then we're going to develop a resistance to offering our services to protect against feeling all of that stuff, right? So then it's our sabotage, right? To keep us feeling good and feeling like a good person. And so many of us do this. I did this for sure in my journey, is that I didn't understand that. And truly, I got it intellectually, Sean. I just didn't really get it in my body that every answer was the right answer, right? Whatever they said, whether it was yes or no, was perfect for them. Because I made a yes the right answer and a no a wrong answer. And you've talked about this before, right? That's why there's so many just BS programs out there, like turn every single person that you talk to into a yes. And no, right? Like every single person is actually not a yes. And
Yeah.
the more people that you talk to, you're actually going to get more no's than you do get yeses. And so we have to be able to develop a healthy relationship with whatever our prospects say, yes or no. And when we do that, when I shifted from believing that yes was right and no was wrong, and made my goal inside of my consultation was to advocate for them, make a bold offer, and then help them make a decision, period. Not the right decision or the wrong decision, but help them make a decision that it's either yes or it's no. Then that was a game changer for me, because then I wasn't taking anything personally. I just wanted to help them decide something clearly for themselves. And that, man, it freed them up because they were feeling less pressure from me, right, and less pressure to do the right thing. And the results were incredible in terms of the people who actually ended up saying yes, because I didn't care if they said no.
Yeah, that's the piece that I think a lot of people don't have the faith and or the experience to fully believe. That the counter intellectual truth is that when you no longer care whether people say yes or no, because you've decided that everything is the right answer, and now you want people to just make a choice, you'll get a lot more yeses because of the lack of pressure that you said, that you won't put pressure on yourself to the same degree, and that pressure won't be felt by them to the same degree. And whenever pressure is introduced in a conversation, it's going to cause most people to resist. So the prospect is now going to resist more when you bring pressure into the conversation. And that's one of the reasons why you're actually going to get more yeses or more no's with pressure, and more yeses without the pressure. Because then the win or a loss actually happens before they say yes or no. And that's how you can be more bold, because your validation and your enoughness and all the things we just talked about with self-esteem is not on the table with a yes or no decision. So I would say that the solution to this one is basically what we said with the other one, because it's like a subset. It's a specific subset of having your self-esteem wrapped up into this. So the answer is to detach your self-esteem so that you're not putting your personal enoughness inside of every sales conversation or every consultation. Oh, another thing that hit me when you were talking a moment ago about this is whatever you were saying, and I'm not remembering the words right now, but that's how prospects become enemies. Because if they say the wrong answer,
they better say the right thing.
Exactly. So that's how we can enemize. That might mean something totally different. So make people enemies. How to enemize your prospects. Ugh. All right. Erase. Yeah. How to not make your prospects the enemies.
Yeah.
As opposed to enemas. See, this is the importance of a syllable. Like just a single sound can change something, really profound and talking about sales and stuff to something emotionally intrusive.
Well said.
Yeah. All right. Let's change the subject really quick.
Number 7. This actually ties in with shocking, right? With some of the conversations we've had already, but a lot of us put so much pressure on ourselves to get it right. We have to have the right pricing, right? So I'm going to resist charging because I don't know what the right thing to charge is. And you opened this up when we talked about trying to price too high, too fast. It's just whatever you choose, that's right until you change it to something different. Okay, so here's a couple of things. Number 1, your worth and your enoughness are a separate conversation from what you charge, right? So your worth as a human, you are valid, you are worthy, period. What you charge for coaching, the right thing to charge is what people will pay for. That's the right number is what they'll pay for. And what I mean by that is I'll use you, Sean, as an example. You are right, a brilliant, talented, phenomenal coach. And in certain markets, in certain parts of the world, with certain groups of people, you might charge a different price for the same thing that in another part of the world with a different group of people, you would charge something totally different. That has nothing to do with who you are as an individual. That just has to do with who the people are, what they're used to paying, what they're, in different parts of the world, right? It's more expensive to live in California than it is to live in the Midwest, right? Milk is more expensive out there. So we have to take these things into consideration. And it doesn't mean anything about your value as a coach or as an individual. There's no right answer. The high ticket, low ticket, whatever dollar amount you choose, it has to be, instead of trying to get it right, the word, Sean, that you've used so many times in this conversation today has been alignment. What's in alignment with you, with the people that you're selling to, and start there. And remember that your prices aren't being, I wouldn't do this anyway. They're not being tattooed to your forehead. So they're allowed to change and they're allowed to evolve as you evolve. So allow it to be what's right for you in the moment and remind yourself that you have that permission to shift and change as you see necessary for whatever reason.
Yes to all of it. And man, it's hard to just kind of go high level on these conversations because we just want to deep dive into all of them. But I just need to keep reminding myself that there are other videos you guys can all deep dive with playlists and so forth. If right is defined as aligned and wrong is defined as misaligned, then almost everything you do in your business will change. So as long as those are the new definitions, then go for right and wrong. But the definitions have to fundamentally change because of those things. I'm going to add another level to what you said about me charging different prices in different areas. There's also certain areas whether we're actually talking about physical locations, like different places on the map, or we're just talking about different industries where like there are some areas and some arenas where my information and me personally are sought after to some degree. They're valuable. People will pay money. People, listen with respect and they want more and so forth. And then there are other arenas where me and everything I stand for is worthless to them. I think that's a really critical distinction, that when it comes to pricing, what people will pay for is a function of their perception of value. So I can simultaneously be valuable and worthless. So I can have information that in certain places to certain people is massively valuable, and in other places to other people is literally meaningless and worthless and not valuable at all. And I would get booed off stages because I am not what they perceive to be valuable. So if we take it to a full extreme like that, where the same thing can be perceived as valuable or meaningless, is really critical also to understand, because now the variance in pricing value and the variance in people's perception of us really doesn't have hardly anything to do with us. And that's just underscoring your point that you are valuable as a human being, and your lessons are life-saving to somebody and a waste of time to most people, right? Not just some people, but most people. I'm going to swear, because if anybody's this far into the video, you're engaged. Most people on the planet don't give a shit about what you're offering. That's just the hard reality, because there's nothing, unless you're offering oxygen to people who can't breathe in a literal sense, there's nothing that most people across the globe are going to value and pay for. Nothing that's going to get the majority of the people paying for it. Nothing. And every single person that you admire has 99% of the people that hear about them don't buy them. They don't buy their products. They don't go to their seminars. They don't purchase their coaching. So the vast majority of things that you see as valuable are not purchased by the majority of people. And that's just a hard reality. And so I say that with love and advocacy, because if you can just embrace the idea that you can be wildly valuable to the right people and literally meaningless to most people, then it'll be easier for you to give yourself permission to find the people that you're valuable for than it will be to try to find the thing that most people are going to say yes to. It's just not possible. You're going to piss off a lot of people, piss them off faster. And the more people that find you meaningless, the more people will find you meaningful. Just the way it goes.
I love it. So the solution, in my opinion, is to redefine what right is for you. I think that's critical. And if you don't have your own definitions, my suggestion in the interim is borrow what I alluded to, and Sean, you said specifically, which is aligned and misaligned for you.
And that's why their no is the right answer,
right?
Just like their yes is the right answer. Because if they say no, then it doesn't mean that your offer or you as a coach is not valuable. It means there's something misaligned for them. Yeah. Now you can help them see if the right answer or the right thing or the thing that's actually valuable could be aligned in their life or not. That's a thing that you can do. But alignment does not, what's the word I want to use? Alignment does not determine value. So something can be valuable and misaligned, or something can be valuable and aligned. And that's when you're going to get somebody to say yes.
Sure.
And if we can separate alignment from value, that's really the way. I don't think we've ever talked about it this way. I don't remember thinking about it this way. That's how you can keep your self-esteem in the value conversation and have it separated from the yes or no conversation, because yes or no is a function of alignment. Value and self-esteem is actually not. I think that's probably as clear as a breakdown that I can remember of us putting on this conversation of how both yes and no can be the right answer, because right and wrong is determined by alignment and not value.
Okay. Number 8. We've used this word a few times, but they are focused on the desperation. There's so much desperation that's attached.
They being the coaches, right?
Coaches, yeah. So the coaches that are resistant to charging their clients, one of the reasons might be that they're focused on there's too much desperation because they're focused on their own personal income goals. And that just puts a lot of pressure. We say things like, I've quit my job and I've got to make this work in this amount of time, or I'm giving myself 2 years, or I want to be able to do this thing in X amount of time. And those, there's a difference between having goals, right? And we did a whole masterclass video on goal setting to really help you break down the steps, right? The actionable steps to reach your goal. So we'll definitely link to that. There's a difference between having a goal and then having a plan that you're working versus having this desperate, I've got to make this work. If this doesn't work, I'm a failure, I'm a loser. What my parents said about this coaching thing is right. That kind of energy, which creates this desperation, which connects to all the things that we've already talked about, right? Putting our self-esteem in our offer, putting the pressure on the clients to give us the right answer, which is yes, right? So all of these things are connected. And I know we've talked about this in depth before, so I just want to mention it. It's not about whether you have a job or you don't have a job as you build your coaching business. It's about your own tolerance for risk and where you feel pressure or not. For me, financial pressure is a shutdown. That's a on the brakes, game over. So for me, having income, having a job, I waited tables for the majority of the time that I built my coaching business, right? To be able to just have that source of income that's coming in from work that I'm doing, that's a little bit more reliable and consistent, that just makes it easier for me to breathe, so that every single consultation isn't like a conversation about my lights being turned on or being turned off. And I did that in another industry, in not having anything to do with coaching, but it was a sales industry. And that pressure was just a complete shutdown. And I feel like it's that way for not everybody, but for most people. We just do not perform well when we're under pressure and we're coming from a place of fear.
Yeah, I think one of the disservices that the personal development industry has given to us is that so many of the rags to riches stories involve desperation.
Yeah. Oh, dang. Okay.
Yeah, I've never thought of that till now. And those are so often the sexiest stories. Those are the ones that are the juiciest. They activate us, they motivate us, they inspire us. And, the human likes a good story where the hero of the story is up against the wall to some degree. And if this doesn't happen, then there's something dangerous that's going to occur, right?
Right.
And those stories are simultaneously inspirational and unhelpful for a lot of people. Because if we think that desperation is part of the hero's journey, this would be interesting thing to dive into. I don't know the answer right now because I don't know the steps of the hero's journey. And I'm talking specifically about Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. And that is kind of the standard that a lot of people use, at least. What's involved in the hero's journey? What I believe to be true is that desperation is not a part of it. Now, at least the desperation that you're speaking to, like survival kind of desperation, financial desperation, desperation where the lights might get turned off or I won't have a place to live.
Yeah.
That kind of desperation shuts more people down than it inspires and motivates.
Yes.
But because of what I just said, that desperation often is a part of those hero stories.
Yeah.
We think that it's a required element of it. There is a desperation that is 100% helpful and useful. It's the desperation that you've just got to try, the desperation that you got to take one more step, the desperation that you're going to protect your loved ones. That's a kind of desperation as well, but that's a kind of desperation that inspires people to take action. And survival desperation in the coaching industry and anything that's related to self-esteem and all the stuff that we've dissected in this conversation actually doesn't respond well to survival desperation. So if your lights are on the line, the bills that need to be paid will be determined by whether somebody says yes or no to a coaching package. Go get a job, because there's blood in your offer. And when we have blood in our offers, and I'm intentionally using like maybe a harsh, morbid, kind of disgusting sort of analogy, because it's true.
Yeah, it is.
When we're bleeding like that, and other people's decisions are going to determine whether the bleeding stops or not, that's not fair to them. And it's not fair to you, and it won't feel good. And the people that say yes to, I'm just going to run with this analogy. The people that say yes to your blood offers are actually not the best fit for you. There's this dynamic in human psychology where there's like a victim attraction, where people that share the same wound are attracted to each other. A lot of times we call this codependency. And there's a level of addiction sort of both ways that could then be attracted to each other. And so if somebody's attracted to your desperation offer, their yes is probably going to do more damage long-term than their no would. Because if they say yes to your desperation offer, you now have no impetus to change the problem, because you just got it solved temporarily. Meaning, if you're bleeding and somebody offers you a temporary Band-Aid, while that blood is stopped, there's no reason, there's no leverage or urgency to actually treat the wound while it stopped bleeding. But if it's going to continue bleeding once that Band-Aid is ripped off again, and in this case, once you need to pay another bill next month, or once whatever money they bring into you evaporates and you need it all over again, if the system hasn't changed, then it's just going to perpetuate. So if somebody says yes to a desperate offer, it's probably actually a bad thing, because it's reinforcing the desperation in the system.
Right.
So what we want you to take out of this is to remove the desperation.
Right.
For some people, that does mean get a job. Not everybody. It
Mhm.
comes down to, as you said, tolerance.
Yep.
For some people, it could be a completely different action, which is why we keep saying alignment. The right thing for you doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing for anybody else.
Right.
And even though we hear a lot of stories that are inspiring, whether you've heard my story or Michelle's story or anybody else's story, just because there are stories that are inspiring doesn't mean that we should follow their path, even if we relate to their path. The other thing I'll tell you is that a lot of those inspiring stories aren't the whole story. So you might not actually know some of the other components or the other factors that don't make it into the story. Like, Hollywood makes movies all the time of true stories, and Hollywood always changes the story. At least adds an element that the true story probably doesn't have. There are very few true stories to my knowledge that actually don't get Hollywoodized when they're turned into books and especially when they're turned into movies.
That's right.
Because the human lusts for certain things in stories, and very few real stories have all those things. So Hollywood has to put a love interest in there. Hollywood's got to throw at least a sex scene or two in there, or at least allude to it, right? Hollywood has to dramatize the danger a lot of times to get people engaged and to keep them engaged. So quite often the stories that we are most attracted to are not the whole story, just because of the nature of what causes attraction in a story. So if we take somebody's story and we try to fit ourselves into it identically, when we're not the exact same kind of person and we don't even know the whole story, there's a problem there. So don't think that desperation is a required fuel for your journey, even though it might feel like it's a common factor or variable in almost everybody's inspirational story. That doesn't mean it has to be yours, and especially the survival kind of desperation.
Correct.
That we're talking about. And desperation is an energy. It's not this tangible thing that your prospects can feel.
Yeah.
And they won't walk away and they won't give you any feedback usually that says, you're just a little bit too desperate. Like my tolerance of desperation in a coach is a 4, and you came in at a 6.
Right.
So that's why I said no to your coaching package, because you were 2 notches too high on my desperation totem pole.
Right.
Nobody knows. Nobody's making decisions like that. They're not going to even consciously know, but there's just going to be a feeling. There's like something just doesn't feel right. There's a repulsion in desperation. And one of the things that I don't know when I learned this or how specifically I learned this, but it's one of the most important lessons I've learned in this specific topic is that desperation destroys discernment. When we are desperate, we don't have the capacity to make decisions like we do when we're not desperate, nor does your prospect. So if we bring desperation into the conversation, we're going to destroy their discernment as well. And that's why when they say yes, it's probably not an aligned yes for them or for us. Man, this is a deep one.
Yeah, it's critical. So just to be really, really clear, the solution here is whatever you need to do to remove the desperation, right? And if you're not sure what that is, then click the link in the description, jump on a free call, have somebody else's eyes to help illuminate what that might be for you, whether it's financial or something different.
And we're still offering virtual lobotomies, right?
Yes.
Okay. So click the lobotomy link in the description. Just drive through lobotomies.
If we did that though. Okay.
Make it rain. I remember somebody years ago said, can I just send you my brain and you can fix it and then send it back?
Yeah, I don't know if this is the time you're referring to, but we were at an event together where somebody said that she was hoping to do that. Instead of coming to the event, she would have rather just give us her brain, we do our thing, and then give it back to her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Soon we'll have the product. Number
Soon
9.
we will have that.
I believe that one of the reasons coaches resist charging for coaching is because they feel like they don't have a framework for their clients to follow. So they're not actually really clear on what they're even selling their clients like into, right? And I do understand this. It makes a lot of sense because we want to be able to paint not a detailed one.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be able to cast a vision for our prospects of like, hey, this is going to be the journey inside of our coaching sessions together. What I'm fascinated by is the number of people that I hear say this who've actually graduated from our coaching certification programs where we teach them a framework called Ignite. So that's
like maybe use that one on your certificate.
That's the interesting one. For me.
So I think what that speaks to, we're not trying to throw people under the bus and be demeaning at all. What it speaks to is the lack of clarity that a lot of people have in all the things that we're talking about. But in this case, what is a framework?
Yeah.
And I think what we think as the coach selling something is the required level of clarity for a framework is different than what the prospect wants to see.
Yeah.
And because we don't have clarity around when we have a viable framework to offer, then we won't know when we've fulfilled that. We won't know that, oh, we just learned this in the certification course, or we won't know that your client's looking for this kind of a framework. And I think when it comes to these kinds of intellectual, information-driven resistances, most of us have more than we give ourselves credit for. Meaning we have something that's already viable enough to sell when it comes to informational stuff. But it doesn't feel like it to us because a number of reasons. So what does a framework actually mean to you? That's going to be the question that we would give back to you is, what does that mean? And I would say, I don't know, maybe half the time, if somebody were to answer that question, they'll realize, oh, I already have that. And then maybe the other portion of the time, they realize that's what I need. Or in explaining what they're looking for in a framework, what they're really wanting is something that actually doesn't have anything to do with the framework. What they're really wanting is permission or a guaranteed way to turn every no into a yes, or removing their self-esteem, or any number of these other things, right? So the idea that you need a framework is important because most people need some version of what you're talking about in order for them to hire you as a coach. But what they need to check the box of what you're talking about is probably different than what you think you need for your own confidence and what you think they need in order to say yes to you. So again, it's misalignment. And if what your client needs is to have just 2 questions answered, but what you offer them is a dissertation of the 15 reasons that they need a coach and that they need to hire you. And what if this, all these scenarios, and you put all of that into your sales pitch, you're going to overwhelm them with your fire hose of information. And all they wanted is a sip of water. So most prospects actually need to know less than what you probably think they need to know. But they need to feel more than what you probably think they need to feel. So again, this comes down to alignment.
I think that a lot of us believe that we need to have like, oh, inside of my content, right? I have these, XYZ pillars that I guide my clients through. And I get that desire, but that's not going to be developed until you start coaching people. So it's better to do exactly what you were just speaking to, Sean, right? Really trust back into the certainty of what you already have in place, get in motion with that. And then after doing a lot of coaching, then you'll maybe start to see as your content evolves, oh, actually, I do have these 3 pillars or these 7 steps, that I do guide my clients through. And another thing that I just want to highlight, and we'll put a link to a video about this, is there's a distinction between being like a person-driven coach or being a process-driven coach. And most of the people that I've seen that are more attracted to the work that we teach inside of our certification programs are more person driven, but believe they need to have the steps that a process driven coach has. Neither one is right or wrong, but it is an important distinction for you to make so that you really understand your own definition of framework. And we do offer signature value sessions. We offer content, like skeleton sessions with people. Individual consultation can help you really understand what might be the next step for you in this to know what it is that you need as far as a framework is concerned. And my first step would be, Sean, to do exactly what you said, which is pause and answer that question. What exactly do I mean when I say framework?
Yeah. So just to highlight what you just mentioned, we do have these sessions where we spend one-on-one time with you and ask you some questions, get the answers. And I'd say about 100% of the time, what somebody should be teaching, and that's judgmental from my perspective, but in terms of how they answer the questions and the passion that they have when they say certain things and the lack of passion when they say other things, the aligned topic that people should be teaching according to their energy is not what they're trying to teach, or it's something that they undervalue, or both. And that could be why they're not trying to teach it. So we all need somebody else to help extract the things that we're holding in our blind spots, or that we're doubting for whatever reason. And I've been doing this work for so long. We got all these videos, and I still need this. I still want other people to at least confirm ideas that I might have, because the best ideas, I think, are always wrapped in doubt. I think they're always, they always come with doubt. I think that's just the nature of really good creative ideas. So if you doubt the things that you want to teach or who you are, that's great. That probably is more of a confirmation than a shutdown that you might be on the right path. But because we have this idea that anything that produces doubt is wrong, then we tend to veer away from the things that we should actually be leaning into and diving into. So we do these sessions where we spend one-on-one time with you and help you either identify what content would be good for you, and or identify what market, what seeker, what your signature value is, or where your signature target should be. So click on the link if you want more information on that. And it's really profound how quickly a lot of people can come up with their signature value when prodded, when asked questions, when provoked, but how immensely difficult it is to do it on your own.
Yay, right. The human brain. Number 10. I feel like a drum roll or something. Okay.
That
we
was...
resist. Was that solid?
That was maybe the best drum roll I've heard come out of a human.
Ever.
Can you, that was Can you do that? Did that like take everything out of you, or can you do that again?
Yeah, I'm exhausted. Well, I went to bed on my table, but I have dogs, right? As I'm sure you've heard. So if I do that, then they're going to start barking. And then I don't have the whatever, I'm going to believe it's a gene, like a genetic thing to trill my tongue. So
Yeah,
I just,
not. But
it's exactly what it was. About as good as your machine gun.
Nothing was as good as my machine gun.
Oh my goodness.
All right, so drum roll. Number 10.
Sad drum roll. I think a lot of the coaches who are resisting charging for coaching, it's because they feel like they don't know how to customize and how to price their coaching packages. They don't know how to put those together. And that makes sense too, right? You're going to have resistance to offering something when you don't have certainty in what it is that you're offering. Sean, you've done an incredible training, which we'll link to, that really breaks this down on how to create your coaching packages and prices. And I think if you just follow the steps in that, I mean, you in that video break down literally like exactly how to choose, the number of months to choose. Just start there. And we tend to have this desire to overcomplicate things, right? Like it can't just be that simple. I'm sure there's got to be an extra step or something that he's not teaching me. And there isn't one. Just my recommendation is to do that. Pick something to start with and start there, and then test it with information and then adjust as necessary.
The key ingredient that almost everybody is missing, and I'll say everybody who is, no, I'm not going to say that, but the key ingredient that almost everybody is missing is action. You just haven't taken enough action, right? With the feedback and everything you said. I just caught myself because I do know of people who are taking action, but it's not aligned action. So for the people who are taking a lot of action, and I've said this, I mean, you've heard me say this, in my experience, there's only 3 people that I can remember in 17 plus years who've told me what they're doing. And my reaction is, you should actually have more results than you're getting based on the action that you're taking. 3 people that I can remember, almost. So everybody minus those 3 people, which is thousands. Right. It's like, oh, of course, because the recipe you're following, it's impossible to produce the action or the results that you're wanting. Right. It's not aligned, right? So many of us are just wishing that the meatloaf recipe produces chocolate chip cookies. And that's just a harsh reality for most of us, but it's a good thing. It's like what I was saying about the bitter pill. It's a good thing to recognize, oh, I'm following the wrong recipe, or I'm following a recipe that might not be the wrong recipe, but it's not the aligned recipe for what I want to create. And if I am responsible for the recipe, then I'm also responsible for changing the recipe. So it's actually an empowering concept to embrace, that we have the ability to shift. Alignment has become the theme of the conversation here, which I think is really critical for us to understand.
Just to be really clear, my solution is to watch that video that you recorded and create your coaching packages from there, and then adjust after a lot of action.
Perfect.
Awesome. Number 11.
Right. Ooh.
Backup drummer. The number 11th reason that coaches resist charging for coaching is because they are not clear on their niche. So they're trying to sell.
The number 11th.
11th.
Sorry to.
Awkward. The best part is that I actually wouldn't have even recognized that had you not.
I thought you did it on purpose.
No,
Because that's something that you would generally do on purpose. And then it felt like it wasn't on purpose.
It wasn't on purpose.
So, being the kind person that I am.
I love it. My
All
grandma Judy said that if you say things with confidence, then no one will question you. But clearly, she did not know you. And also, that does have bigger conversations.
There's a lot of truth to that. You say things with confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. I used the word conversate intentionally. Like, I didn't know that that actually wasn't appropriate for years, that it was actually converse.
Conversate?
Conversate.
Yeah. Did you get a lot of people to just kind of lower their head and just sort of just pray for her?
Probably.
But this concept, let me save us in this moment. This concept of if you say something confidently, people won't challenge you, I think is a factor in everything that we've been talking about.
I agree.
One of the big reasons that we don't give ourselves permission to take action and all that stuff is because we don't feel confident. And we think the feeling of confidence is a prerequisite to take action. And it just isn't. And the only way to get confidence is through action. The only way to get clarity is through action. You said earlier that you just do a bunch of things, right? And that's one of the ways that you can even design, your framework and understand what the quote unquote right thing to do is. It's impossible to find alignment without action. I mean, maybe there are internal alignment conversations, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about getting coaching clients. We're talking about building a business. We're talking about something that requires external actions. So there's no such thing as alignment without action in this context. And so if the thing that we're holding ourselves back, or the thing that we are waiting for to take action, is the feeling of confidence, but the feeling of confidence requires action, then we're in trouble.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's hard to sell something when you're speaking. So we don't have a niche that we're talking to. It's really hard to sell because we're speaking about a general product to a general group of human beings. And so trying to find the right price and figure out what's in alignment and all of the stuff we've been talking about in this video becomes just exponentially challenging. And we have an entire playlist on how to choose your niche and identify what your coaching niche could be. And we'll put a link to that here in the description of this video.
You feel awkward every time you say niche?
No.
No?
Nope. Niche.
I do.
I'm solid on it because I don't like
I feel awkward every time you say niche. No, I feel awkward every time I say it because it's not the way I used to always say it. But we did do a good job of just being aligned and saying, this is just the way we're going to say it. It does sound a little bit better. We're
smarter, like it's a niche.
Right. It's like we say it with a pinky out.
We're more prestigious.
That's right. It's a niche, darling.
Exactly. Versus niche.
In the niche conversation, the whole point is to produce action. That's the whole point. But it's not the way most people are in that conversation, meaning most people are in the how do I find my niche conversation to produce a guarantee or to produce right or to produce feel good or to produce something else that is not even available without action. So as you said, there are several videos that we've done. My personal favorite is the Llama's Eye video. There's something I can't I can't not remember the llama chasing the dude.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It truly is amazing. So that should be your solution, and just watch that one next, right after this one. But if you understand the point of identifying a niche, it'll actually be easier for you to identify it and then get in motion and then have your niche revealed to you. That's a thing that most people, I think, are missing, is that the point of a target is to shoot at it, not to actually hit it.
Yeah.
In this conversation.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a target clearly identified, you probably won't take a shot at it. And if you don't take a shot at it, then the real target will never actually reveal itself to you. Sometimes, although it's very rare, sometimes the thing that people clearly identify in the earlier part of their journey is actually the thing that they're going to spend a lot of time on or get a lot of success or people will value. Most of the time, the only purpose of your niche, especially the early ones, the only purpose of your niche is for you to take a lot of action and enough action to recognize this ain't your niche.
Right.
The purpose of your first niche is probably to get to your second one. And then the purpose of your second one is probably to get to your third one. That's not the way most people enter the conversation about niche. And that's also why I think a lot of people really struggle with that and never take action on it, is because they're in the conversation with the wrong intention, with the wrong outcome intention, in my experience. So the solution to this is watch the Llama's Eye video, pick a niche. If you need help, click the link. We'll support you. Click the link to register for a one-on-one session. We'll support you so that you can just get in motion.
Right.
There's nobody who's ever thought their way or strategized their way to their dreams or to success of any kind. You can only act your way into your goals, your dreams, and the success that you want. So this whole conversation has really been about how can we remove the obstacles that are preventing action for you. With action comes outcomes, comes feedback, comes adjustment, comes reassessing, retargeting, then same thing just repeats itself. And if you give yourself permission to repeat that cycle, there truly is nothing that can stand in your way. You will succeed if you commit to the repetition of that cycle in business. Most people don't, because of all these things that we've just talked about, especially specifically in this conversation about charging for their coaching services.
Well, we just got done talking about finding your niche, so you might as well watch that video right there that we now affectionately call the Llama's Eye video. Because I think a llama is cooler than a bull. I think it's like a nicer, cuter, more loving animal.